I mean, it's one thing to go to a church and as a formality, yeah, as a way of worshiping God, but that's religion. What I'm talking about is an experience of walking with Christ, living with Christ, and we're living with a body of people that want to do the same thing together. And that's a living organization. And that's what I'm excited about is happening right now.
I started going there when I was probably a junior in high school. There was a quartet. The quartet resulted in Rex Sansball, Fred Haddad, Floyd Ingrid, Ray Velma. My sister worked in the 5 and 10. And so Ray Belmont, I think, went in there a lot and was telling her about the church services on Thursday night.
Okay, that makes sense.
And tried it out. And as soon as we walked in the door, one of the fellas said, "Do you play any instruments?" Well, Marcy played the piano. I played the piano a little bit. But I ended up playing the piano for that church for 27 and a half years.
There was a lady there that donated a piece of land. That was the beginning of the church. I handled every cinder block in that building. My stepfather and I delivered all of those blocks. He slid them down a plank and I piled them all.
Yvonne Smith and me did so much painting in that church.
Reva Hall played the piano. Jim Hall was the Sunday school superintendent at that time. But Ray was at the church for a lot of years. You would never find, he was what you call a fire and brimstone pastor.
Good.
And I came along in 1956.
Wow.
So my whole life was the church.
Being in church, all the time, every time there was a service, the doors were open, I was there, We had, kids' church as well, which was so fun. Daddy built marionettes, stage, and we all learned how to do the marionettes. And that really brought a lot of children in, And the quartets, all the musical quartets that came. Oak Ridge Boys are still friends of ours.
When we were kids, actually Ray came and picked me up, and they had a model airplane club, So that was the first time I ever went there.
They were neighbors.
Yeah. But then after we got married, then, we attended there.
My dad was my pastor, but then when Daddy retired, then Pastor Meyer was my pastor, and I was the first one that they met when they came to the church. I was cleaning the church.
And there was a person inside. Turns out it was Connie Balamont. She was the first person we met from the church.
Mm-hmm. That's our first meeting, and it was so nice to meet them and greet them. We just love them to bits.
They asked me, they said, would you consider being a candidate? Because, I was really just there to fill in. And I said, yes, I would. When are we coming? Because we really just felt like immediately this is where God was bringing us. So there was no question about it. We went home, drove all the way to Colorado, and we started packing. Jim Hall called. And he said, are you still interested in coming? And I said, yes, we are. He said, well, we voted to invite you to come.
It was in 1969, I believe, that we first came here. We had been searching for a church after being asked to leave. We wanted a church that preached Jesus Christ, for one thing, and that was the most important thing, really. But the second most important, we had 4 kids, and we wanted a good church for them to grow up in. We wanted a good youth group for them. We wanted an active church. We wanted a church that we could become part of the family. But I'll never forget the first time we came here. We came to a Sunday night service, and I had just been diagnosed with Bell's palsy. They were calling people to the front, to the altar, and finally it was almost like God picked me out of my seat and pushed me right down the aisle. I went to bed that night, and I laid there, and all of a sudden, it was like somebody took a feather and went right across my face. And I didn't even get up. I knew I'd been healed. And I'm yelling at my husband and saying, it's our church. That's where we're going to go to church from now on. And that's exactly what we did.
Well, it was I that first attended because of Mary Jane Baker. I met her at school. She witnessed to me. I got saved there. And where else do you go? but Highway Tabernacle.
I was not saved at the time, and food was a motivator to go to the Stroheckers home group. Bill and Terry would invite me to go cut firewood, and the conversation centered around knowing Christ. Anyway, the Lord was faithful.
Gene and my name was called from the pulpit along with the two other couples, and we were asked to leave this church. But we were praying and asking God where to go, where we could land, you know. And during that time there, Highway Tabernacle then had the Singing Camerons there as a invited group, and that was on a Sunday night. We didn't even go in the building that night or in the sanctuary that night, but they had French doors on the church. All glasses, all windows, and we could watch everything. I mean, there wasn't anything we missed. But they were walking back through the aisles and prophesying over people and everything, and we really liked what we saw. Another thing I think was important is our involvement with the college ministry. I wasn't that bold about it, or either that confident about it either, because we got up there and got involved in this campus worship. And I can't figure out what we're supposed to be doing here, you know, because it seemed like they had things going, and all of a sudden the Lord just dropped in my heart. He said, just be there.
We met up at campus at Free Worship, which was a weekly gathering. And Bill Strohecker and Ken Meyer were there because they would come up and hang out. They wouldn't teach, they wouldn't instruct. He would just be available. And so that was our initial meeting, Bill and Pastor Meyer, who invited us to church.
Actually, it's 50 years ago. This month, my parents brought me to Mansfield from Chambersburg and to sign up for classes and look around the campus a little bit more. And on the way home, we started looking through some of the materials that they had given us. And my mom, very interested that I find a church similar to the one we attended in Chambersburg. She looked through and she said, okay, we got churches here. We've got this one and this one. Highway Tabernacle. And her face lit up. That sounds like the place. I'm standing in the back looking in the windows. What do I see? A grand piano and a Hammond organ. I'm home. That night I went back for church in the evening, and it was over, and I went up to the girl that was playing the piano. Seemed to be like a high school student, and I said, hey, we were playing the organ. I said, do you mind if I play the organ? She says, well, like, can you? And I said, well, just let me.
I said, well, just play for us and let's just see how you do.
Oh, he's so
And so the next Sunday, I booked him.
She goes, all right, from now on, you're the organist, and my mom's the pianist, and if she's not here, you're playing it. She just bossed me right all over.
And so when he came in, of course, I had to vet him because this was my job from Pastor Meyer.
Of course, one of the things that still is part of our life is that of New Covenant Academy. We opened the doors in 1979. The other teacher, besides myself, was Tom Putnam. And it was wonderful because there was a lot of exploring, a lot of opportunities for the church to become involved. Here we are, some 44 years later with New Covenant.
So we'd heard about the youth group at that time, Highway Tabernacle, and we were able to take in foster children. And some of them were teenagers or approaching teens, and we knew they needed a youth group. And so that was the first calling card. We started getting more and more involved with the church and the fellowship and meeting, like you've already heard from other people, from home to home. I can remember standing up in church one day to give testimony, and I said, this has been such a great week because every single day we were in somebody's home, all 7 days, sharing a meal, praying, whatever. Sometimes the ladies would get together to bake bread or can. It was strong fellowship, singing the word, sharing each other's burdens.
That was the closest to the Church of Acts
Right.
that we've ever experienced. Never experienced it since. But just, it was like going house to house.
And when we were first married, I remember it was the time of the co-op too. So the ladies would get together and we would buy all the food in bulk.
And that met once a month in the church basement. And we got 50 pounds of flour at a time. And this was from Walnut Acres.
I didn't necessarily appreciate the organic foods and stuff that we got into along the way. We got really like these lentil loaf as a lentils as a substitute for beef. Are you kidding me? So lentil loaf instead of meatloaf. It's like, give me a break. But this was this. Not only were we healthy in spirit, we were trying to get healthy in our bodies.
They're all favorites. But I tell you one that I sing a lot to myself is Romans 8:11.
I wasn't thinking of yours. I was thinking of Rob Fitzgerald has one. Love is a flag flown high.
Oh.
Bill Stroher started that. And he would always start out with the song, Love is the Flag Flown High, and he'd whip a handkerchief out of his pocket. And everybody would do the same.
Yeah.
It just became a chorus that we'd repeat again and again when Rob led the worship service.
Love is the flag flown high o'er the castle of my heart, where the king is in residence there.
We also at the time did something called fixing each other's cars. That's where you get in and you would turn things on, like turn the radio the whole way up, turn the heater on, the windshield wipers, turn everything on that you could, so that when they turned the ignition, everything would happen. It was not the heathen we needed to worry about at Halloween. It was the church people. I turned it on and somebody had fixed it. Now, they not only fixed the inside, but they put strips of toothpaste across our windshield wipers.
Oh.
So when they went up, the whole thing was a cloud of toothpaste. I happened to be out of windshield wiper juice, and the building was closed. Well, a couple hours later, somebody needed to go to the hospital and give birth.
Oh.
So we are scooting back to Wellsboro like this. You can't see because somebody had fixed our car at the harvest site.
Highway Tabernacle, 1976, I believe.
So we're having prayer. Yeah. All the elders were up forward.
Well, Larry Smith was an elder, and just a small man, like right in the middle of all these people.
But they were praying for somebody, and they were in the football huddle mode.
Bill being the very affectionate and gathering and hug and all that.
yeah.
So he went out and did one of these kind of a group hug thing. But when he did, he caught Larry's necktie and pulled it.
Yeah.
Poor Larry's here kind of like
trying to pull himself out of the huddle.
And Bill's just praying up a storm, and people were worshiping. And poor Larry's all red-faced and trying to yank his way out of it. Oh.
One of my favorite times of the year was the kids camp that we had out at Trantham's farm. One of the best memories of kids camp was breakfast when the ladies made the egg sandwiches with the sausage, and then they wrapped them in the tin foil. You unwrap that tin foil and that roll is so soft and it's hot and it's steaming. And, it just tasted so good.
Them kids camps.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
yeah. Well, we got this huge pond out there, and they needed some place for the kids to do something. Woody was involved in a lot of it. And
Terry Mickey.
Gene Powers and I cooked.
Pastor Myers.
But when it started, it was kind of small. And Woody had he just had all these games and things for the kids to do. And they loved it. Then they swam. We had swimming Olympics and this kind of thing. Oh, yeah. It never seemed like work. We looked forward to it. It was fun.
Well, I would say one of the events I remember a lot was going to Ivan Trantham's for the church picnic.
Some of those picnics were at Trantham's, as was mentioned, I think. And then at one point they were at the Bob and Ruth Clark's place. But just getting together with people, and it wasn't just the same people all the time. It was you loved everybody, and you just had fun.
The harvest dinners, I think, were the best.
Yeah.
Spiritually, Terry Mickey, Bill Strohecker, Ken Meyer, the three most spiritually influential men in my life. And not were, but are.
Carol Mickey and Gene Strohecker at that time, in those younger years, were my mentors.
I mentioned Gene Strohecker. We mentioned Joe and Lorraine Cole. Dr. Downey and his wife played a very big part. opening their home.
Definitely it was Pastor Meyer, and I say Downey's because we went to their get-togethers.
Mary Jane Baker, definitely the Stroheckers, Hob and Bev Clark, Carol and Terry Mickey were probably the core.
I would say Ken and Jesse Meyer.
Pastor Myers.
Pastor Myers. Yeah. He would come out here and go up on the hill and spend time up on the hill. Just.
I've seen him spend all day up there.
The first person that came to my mind was Pastor Meyer. And he really, I felt, invested in me and opened a door for me.
Jessie, she molded my life. She was a model for me to see what a pastor's wife looks like and does, what she does in her home.
Debbie Hall and her mom Reva. The Hall family became my family. They took me in, they took my roommate in. We were up there practically every Sunday, and they provided me a place.
The thing about the church for the people was the people. The people, everyone was so special.
And the people were just so good. They just were good.
Well, when you mentioned my dad was always about salvation. He wanted people to know Jesus Christ in their heart. His desire would be that the church would never stray from that message.
I don't want to wait for the next generation. I want the generation now to experience revival and the awakening so that can be passed on to the next generation.
I want to see the generation, I want them to know who they are, whose they are. That they don't have to feel like they have to walk and fake it out, but that they can be who God created them to be and walk out their destiny that He has for them.
I want to see for the next generation, for the parents, I want them to know this is a place you can bring your kids and they're going to be safe here. They're going to learn what's right.
To become so one with the Lord, all the people, not just the youth, but everybody, to become so intimate with the Lord that the stuff that we hear isn't going to destroy us.
For the older men to mentor the younger men, and the younger men to seek out someone to mentor them. And same way with the ladies.
When I think about the church, the impact it's had on me and what I'll forever carry, gave us a place to heal and time to heal.
It's a dependable family that is always going to be there.
Just grateful for the touch of, and when they come in the door, they could feel the presence of the Lord when they walked in the door. You know what I mean?
Clearly, Church of the New Covenant and its ministry and its teaching and its people have made a difference in my life. So I would like to replicate that by, inviting people and asking them to continue to be a part of. And I think in that there really is and can be a legacy.